Greetings, one and all, once again to Exploring Arda, a Tolkien-centered podcast where I am your host, Jackson, and together we traverse through a lot of Tolkien's stories, and mainly it's been the Silmarillion, but I've covered a few other stories as well, and actually only just Smith of Wood and Major so far, but also kind of delved into Ardian figures, as you guys have seen or listened to, so I appreciate each and every listen and view. And I realize that I haven't really done that at the beginning, so make sure, if you guys are my subscribers, or if you're listening to this, make sure that you comment down below what you enjoy about not only this show, but the Silmarillion, anything about Tolkien stuff, anything relating to this show, pretty much. And you can put anything, you can put comments on Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I would love that too, because that's the whole thing of this show, is that it's all Tolkien-centered, so whatever it is, and I'm just reading through everything but Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So, that's kind of the whole project of mine, and today we are doing the final installment of Farmer Giles of Ham, and it's been a fun adventure so far. I've been enjoying it very much. And I don't know, I left the last episode off of a cliffhanger as Farmer Giles unwillingly, goes to confront the dragon after a good deal of ale has passed through him, and after a few of the guys in the village kind of pester him, almost bullying him into it. And eventually he just kind of is okay, whatever, fine, I'll do it. If you guys are just going to stop with this harassment, pretty much. So, and then he actually does end up accidentally coming upon the dragon, as he did not, I guess he didn't hear or see him over a hill or something like that. So now we get to the final confrontation with Chrysophalax the dragon and Farmer Giles. So here we go. All right. There was the dragon, lying half across a broken hedge with his horrible head in the middle of the road. "Help," said Garm, and bolted. The grey mare sat down plump, and Farmer Giles went off backward into a ditch. When he pulled his head out, there was the dragon, wide awake, looking at him. "Good morning," said the dragon. "You see some prize?" "Oh, good morning," said Giles. "I am that." "Excuse me," said the dragon. He had cocked a very suspicious ear when he caught the sound of rings jingling as the farmer fell. "Excuse my asking, but were you looking for me by any chance?" "No, indeed," said the farmer. "Who'd have thought of seeing you here? I was just going for a ride." He scrambled out of the ditch in a hurry and backed away towards the grey mare. She was now on her feet again and was nibbling some grass at the wayside, seeming quite unconcerned. "Then we meet by good luck," said the dragon. "The pleasure is mine. Those are your holiday clothes, I suppose. A new fashion, perhaps?" Farmer Giles felt his hat had fallen off and his grey cloak had slipped open, but he brazened it about. "Aye," said he, "brand new. But I must be after that dog of mine. He's gone after rabbits, I fancy." "I fancy not," said Chrysophalax, licking his lips, a sign of amusement. "He will get home a long time before you do, I expect. But pray proceed on your own way, master. Let me see, I don't think I know your name." "Nor I yours," said Giles, "and we'll leave it at that." "As you like," said Chrysophalax, licking his lips again, but pretending to close his eyes. He had a wicked heart, as dragons all have, but not a very bold one, as is not usual. He preferred a meal that he did not have to fight for, but appetite had returned after a good long sleep. The parson of Oakley had been stringy, and it was years since he had tasted a large fat man. He had now made up his mind to try this easy meat, and he was only waiting until the old fool was off his guard. But the old fool was not as foolish as he looked, and he kept an eye on the dragon, even while he was trying to mount. The mare, however, had other ideas, and she kicked and shied when Giles tried to get up. The dragon became impatient and made ready to spring. "Excuse me, haven't you dropped something?" An ancient trick, but it succeeded, for Giles had indeed dropped something. When he fell, he had dropped Codmordax, or vulgarly Tailbiter, and there it lay by the wayside. He stooped to pick it up, and the dragon sprang, but not as quick as Tailbiter. As soon as it was in the farmer's hands, it leaped forward with a flash, straight into the dragon's eyes. "Hey!" said the dragon, and stopped very short. What have you got there?" "Only Tailbiter. That was given to me by the king," said Giles. "My mistake," said the dragon. "I beg your pardon." He lay and groveled, and Farmer Giles began to feel more comfortable. "I don't think you have treated me fair." "How not?" said Giles. "And anyway, why should I?" "You have concealed your honorable name, and pretended that our meeting was by chance. Yet you are plainly a knight of high lineage. It used, sir, to be the custom of knights to issue a challenge in such cases, after a proper exchange of titles and credentials." "Maybe it used, and maybe it still is," said Giles, beginning to feel pleased with himself. A man who has a large and imperial dragon groveling before him may be excused if he feels if he feels somewhat uplifted. "But you are making some mistakes than one, old worm. I am no knight. I am Farmer Aegidius of Ham, I am, and I can't abide trespassers. I've shot giants with my blunderbuss before now for doing less damage than you have, and I issued no challenge neither." The dragon was disturbed. "Curse that giant for a liar," he thought. "I have been sadly misled. And now what on earth does one do with a bold farmer and a sword so bright and aggressive?" He could recall no precedent for such a situation. "Chrysophalax is my name," said he. "Chrysophalax the rich. What can I do for your honor?" he added ingratiatingly, with one eye on the sword and hoping to escape battle. "You can take yourself off, you horny old..." Wait, hold on, sorry. "You horny old varmint," said Giles. That's funny. Also was hoping to escape battle. "I only want to be shut of you. Go right away from here and get back to your own dirty den." Then he stepped toward Chrysophalax, waving his arms as if he was scaring crows. That was quite enough for Tailbiter. It circled flashing in the air, then down it came, smiting the dragon on the joint of the right wing. A ringing blow had shocked him exceedingly. Of course, Giles knew very little about the right methods of killing a dragon, or the sword might have landed in a tenderer spot. But Tailbiter did the best it could in inexperienced hands. Whew. It was quite enough for Chrysophalax. He could not use his wing for days. Up he got and turned to fly, and found that he could not. The farmer sprang on the mare's back. The dragon began to run. So did the mare. The dragon galloped over a field, puffing and blowing. So did the mare. The farmer bawled and shouted, as if he were watching a horse race, and all the while he waved Tailbiter. The faster the dragon ran, the more bewildered he became. And all the while the gray mare put her best leg foremost and kept close behind him. Yeah, I'll stop here for a little bit. So yeah, this is like the first kind of a clumsy interaction with both the dragon and Giles at the same time. So the dragon's probably trying to outsmart him because it's his meal. And he's just like, well, maybe I'll just kind of like wait. And then Tailbiter slides off and he's just like, oh, okay, this guy is a dragon slayer. I should probably respect what he does, and I should just skedaddle out. And he tries, and Giles has the same mindset, except it's reversed. He's like, I don't want to be eaten. And I guess it's just by, I want to say quote-unquote accident, because this sword has a mind of its own. Tailbiter has a mind of its own. So it's pretty much, even with clumsy hands, it manages to strike a very piercing blow that slows down Chrysophalax, which is kind of funny too. So it kind of makes this clumsy guy look like he's some brave warrior. So kind of funny. And then off they go! So, back to the story here. On they pounded down the lanes, and through the gaps of the fences, over many fields and across many brooks. The dragon was smoking and bellowing and losing all sense of direction. At last they came suddenly to the Bridge of Ham, thundered over it, and came roaring down the village street. There Garm had the impudence to sneak out of an alley and join in the chase. All the people were at their windows or on the roofs. Some laughed and some cheered, and some beat tins and pans and kettles, and others blew horns and pipes and whistles, and the parson had the church bells rung. Such a to-do and an ongoing had not been heard in Ham for 100 years. Just outside the church, the dragon gave up. He lay down in the middle of the road and gasped. Garm came and sniffed at his tail, but Chrysophalax was past all shame. "Good people and gallant warrior," he panted as Farmer Giles rode up, while the villagers gathered round at a reasonable distance, with hay forks, poles, and pokers in their hands. "Good people, don't kill me. I am very rich. I will pay for all the damage I have done. I will pay for the funerals of all the people I have killed, especially the parson of Oakley. He shall have a noble cenotaph, though he was rather lean. I will give you each a really good present, if you will only let me go home and fetch it." "How much?" said the farmer. "Well," said the dragon, calculating quickly. He noticed that the crowd was rather large. 13 and 8 pence each." "Nonsense," said Giles. "Rubbish," said the other people. "Rot," said the dog. 2 golden guineas each, and children half price," said the dragon. "What about dogs?" said Garm. "Oh, no, that's not Garm." Whoops. "What about dogs?" said Garm. "Go on," said the farmer. "We're listening." £10 and a purse of silver for every soul, and gold collars for the dogs," said Chrysophalax anxiously. "Kill him!" shouted the people, getting impatient. "A bag of gold for everybody, and diamonds for the ladies," said Chrysophalax hurriedly. "Now you're talking, but not good enough," said Farmer Giles. "You've left out dogs again," said Garm. "What size of bags?" said the men. "How many diamonds?" said their wives. Dear me," said the dragon. "I shall be ruined." "You deserve it," said Giles. "You can choose between being ruined and being killed where you lie." He brandished Tailbiter, and the dragon cowered. "Make up your mind," said the people cried, getting bolder and drawing nearer. Chrysophalax blinked, but deep down inside him he laughed, a silent quiver which they did not observe. Their bargaining had begun to amuse him. Evidently they expected to get something out of it. They knew very little of the ways of the wide and wicked world, indeed. There was no one now living in all the realm who had any actual experience in dealing with dragons and their tricks. Chrysophalax was getting his breath back, and his wits as well. He licked his lips. "Name your price," he said. Then they all began to talk at once. Chrysophalax listened with interest. Only one voice disturbed him, that of the blacksmith. No good'll come of it, mark my words," said he. "A worm won't return, say what you like, but no good will come of it either way." "You can stand out of the bargain if that's what you mind," they said to him, and went on haggling, taking little further notice of the dragon. Chrysophalax raised his head, but if he thought of springing on them, or of slipping off during the argument, he was disappointed. Farmer Giles was standing by, chewing a straw and considering, but Tailbiter was in his hand, and his eye was on the dragon. "You lie where you be," said he, "or you'll get what you deserve, gold or no gold." The dragon lay flat. At last the parson was made spokesman, and he stepped up beside Giles. "Vile worm," he said, "you must bring back to this spot all your ill-gotten wealth, and after recompensing, here you go. I'm struggling today, guys. Those whom you have injured, we will share it fairly among ourselves." Wow, sorry guys. "Then, if you make a solemn vow never to disturb our land again, nor to stir up any other monster to trouble us, we will let you depart with both your head and your tail to your own home. And now you shall take some strong oath to return with your ransom, as even the conscience of a worm must hold binding." All right, so a little break here too, I feel like. So yeah, first of all, sorry for the whole mush mouth thing that I have going on today, because I don't feel like any good day is a good day for my kind of narrative reading, so I'll just stick with my writing, that's all. So yeah, Chrysophalax is, I guess, beaten in a way, and he actually ends up inside the village itself, and he just collapses, and Giles comes up, and he's so really confident, puffing out, and yeah, that's what I did, yeah. And he keeps Tailbiter out because he's just yep, that's this sword with me, yep, I defeated the dragon, and now we need to see if we can get anything out of the dragon. And then the people take so long and arguing and bartering that the dragon's keep going, okay, yeah, I'll just keep raising it a little bit more, so that he gets the time, but still, until now. And he's still scared of Giles and Tailbiter, obviously, but we'll see actually what happens. They make a deal, they strike a deal of sorts, and then now it's here. So let's see what it finds out. Chrysophalax accepted, after a plausible show of hesitation. He even shed hot tears, lamenting his ruin, till there were steaming puddles in the road, but no one was moved by them. He swore many oaths, solemn and astonishing, that he would return with all his wealth on the feast of St. Hilarius and St. Felix. That gave him 8 days, and far too short a time for the journey, as even those ignorant of geography might well have reflected. Nonetheless, they let him go, and escorted him as far as the bridge. "To our next meeting," he said, as he passed over the river. "I am sure we shall all look forward to it." "We shall indeed," they said. They were, of course, very foolish, for though the oaths he had taken should have burdened his conscience with sorrow and a great fear of disaster, he had, alas, no conscience at all. And if this regrettable lack in one of imperial lineage was beyond the comprehension of the simple, at least the parson with his book learning might have guessed it. Maybe he did. He was a grammarian, and could doubtless see further into the future than others. The blacksmith shook his head as he went back to his smithy. "Ominous names," he said, "Hilarius and Felix. I don't like the sound of them." The king, of course, quickly heard the news. It ran through the realm like fire and lost nothing in the telling. The king was deeply moved for various reasons, not the least being financial, and he made up his mind to ride at once, in person, to Ham, where such strange things seemed to happen. He arrived 4 days after the dragon's departure, coming over the bridge on his white horse, with many knights and trumpeters, and a large baggage train. All the people had put on their best clothes and lined the streets to welcome him. The cavalcade came to a halt in the open space before the church gate. Farmer Giles knelt before the king when he was presented, but the king told him to rise, and actually patted him on the back. The knights pretended not to observe his familiarity. It's kind of funny. The king ordered the whole village to assemble in Farmer Giles's large pasture beside the river. And then when they were all gathered together, including Garm, who felt that he was concerned, Augustus Bonifacius Rex et Basilius was graciously pleased to address them. He explained carefully that the wealth of the miscreant Chrysophalax all belonged to himself as lord of the land. He passed rather lightly over his claim to be considered suzerain, I'll say, of the mountain country, which was debatable. "But we make no doubt in any case," said he, "that all the treasure of this worm was stolen from our ancestors. Yet we are, as all know, both just and generous, and our good lineage Aegidius shall be suitably rewarded. Nor shall any of our loyal subjects in this place go without some token instead of token, without some token of our esteem, from the parson to the youngest child. For we all well pleased with Ham. Here at least the sturdy and uncorrupted folk still retain the ancient courage of our race." The knights were talking among themselves about the new fashion in hats. The people bowed and curtsies and thanked him humbly, but they wished now that they had closed with the dragon's offer of 10 pounds all round, and kept the matter private. They knew enough, at any rate, to feel sure that the king's esteem would not rise to that. Garm noticed that there was no mention of dogs. Farmer Giles was the only one of them who was really content. He felt sure of some reward, and was mighty glad anyway to have come safely out of a nasty business with his local reputation higher than ever. Alright, so, I guess another quick break. Yeah, so the king himself, instead of writing a letter and sending a sword over to specifically Giles, he actually goes over to the village and pretty much recognizes the whole community as being this brave sort of people that honor ancient traditions. So I think that's kind of like what it was, briefly. And obviously Chrysophalax left, but dragons with their precious hoard of things, they don't really give that up really easy. So we'll just see what happens after that. So let's get back to it here. The king did not go away. He pitched his pavilions in Farmer Giles' field and waited for January. Waited for January. The midday came. Oh, okay, interesting. It was a very interesting thing because it was like a print, a painting, and there it is. There we go. January. It was stuck to the print on the other side. There we go. January the 14th. That makes more sense. Here we go. Making as merry as he could in a miserable village far from the capital. The royal retinue ate up all the bread, butter, eggs, chickens, bacon, and mutton, and drank up every drop of old ale that was in the place in the next 3 days. Then they began to grumble at short commons, but the king paid handsomely for everything, in tallies to be honored later by the exchequer, sure, which he hoped would shortly be richly replenished. So the folk of Ham were well satisfied, not knowing the actual state of the exchequer. January the 14th came, the feast of Hilarius and of Felix, and everybody was up and about early. There, that's better. The knights put on their armor, the farmer put on his coat of homemade mail, and they smiled openly until they caught the king's frown. The farmer also put on Tailbiter, and it went into its sheath as easy as butter, and stayed there. The parson looked hard at the sword and nodded to himself. Wow, himself. The blacksmith laughed. Midday came. People were too anxious to eat much. The afternoon passed slowly. Still, Tailbiter showed no sign of leaping from the scabbard. None of the watchers on the hill, nor any of the small boys who had climbed to the top of tall trees, could see anything by air or by land that might herald the return of the dragon. The blacksmith walked about whistling, but it was not until evening fell and the stars came out that the other folk of the village began to suspect that the dragon did not mean to come back at all. Still, they recalled his many solemn and astonishing oaths and kept on hoping. When, however, midnight struck and the appointed day was over, their disappointment was deep. The blacksmith was delighted. "I told you so," he said, but they were still not convinced. "After all, he was badly hurt," said some. "We did not give him enough time," said others. "It is a powerful long way to the mountains, and he would have a lot to carry. Maybe he has had to get help." But the next day passed, and the next. Then they all gave up hope. The king was in a red rage. The victuals and drinks had run out, and the knights were grumbling loudly. They wished to go back to the merriments of court, but the king wanted money. He took leave of his loyal subjects, but he was short and sharp about it, and he cancelled half the tallies on the exchequer. He was quite cold to Farmer Giles and dismissed him with a nod. "You will hear from us later," he said, and rode off with his knights and his trumpeters. Yeah, so a little bit of a disappointment. Of the villagers, at least, I kind of figured that Chrysophalax would not return because he knew that it was going to be a lose-lose situation for the dragon. Definitely, you either surrender all of your treasure as a dragon, or you pretty much die from Tailbiter. So, I mean, pretty bad on both ends. It's assuming it's the whole dragon, whole quote-unquote dragon sickness kind of thing, where it's like you will guard your treasure with your life if you're a dragon. That's him, so only makes sense, and the blacksmith knew about it, so. Back to it here. The more hopeful and simple-minded thought that a message would soon come from the court to summon Master Aegidius to the king, to be knighted at least. In a week the message came, but it was of different sort. It was written and signed in triplicate, one copy for Giles, one for the parson, and one to be nailed on the church door. Only the copy addressed to the parson was of any use, for the court hand was peculiar and as dark as the folk of Ham as the book Latin. But the parson rendered it into the vulgar tongue and read it from the pulpit. It was short and to the point, for a royal letter. The king was in a hurry. Oh, wow. Hold on. So there is... Okay. So this, in the book, it has a weird... Hold on a minute. I don't know if I can show it or not. So it's a really weird font. It's that old English font. So I'm going to do my absolute best to try to read this. It's not in Latin, but it's kind of hard to read. So let's see how I do. Okay, so I think it just says, "We Augustus," bunch of initials, "ret et cetera, make known that we have determined for the safety of our realm and for the keeping of our honor, that the worm or dragon styling himself Chrysophalax the Rich shall be sought out and punished for his misdemeanors, forts, felonies, and foul perjury. All of the knights of our royal household are hereby commanded to arm and make ready to ride upon this quest so soon as Master Aegidius shall arrive at our court." Inasmuch as the said Aegidius has proven himself a trusty man and well able to deal with giants, dragons, and other enemies of the king's peace. Now, therefore, we command him to ride forth at once and to join the company of our knights with all speed. Yeah, sorry. Some of these letters are really hard to read, so I did my best. People said this was a high honor and next door to be dubbed. The miller was envious. "Friend Aegidius is rising in the world," said he. "I hope he will know us when he gets back." "Maybe he never will," said the blacksmith. "That's enough from you, old horse-face," said the farmer, mighty put out. "Honor be blowed. If I get back, even the miller's company will be welcome. Still, it is some comfort to think that I shall be missing you both for a bit." And with that he left them. You cannot offer excuses to the king as you can to your neighbors. So lambs or no lambs, plowing or none, milk or water, he had to get up on his gray mare and go. The parson saw him off. "I hope you are taking some stout rope with you," he said. "What for?" said Giles. "To hang myself? Wow!" "Nay, take heart, Master Aegidius," said the parson. "It seems to me that you have luck that you can trust. But also take a long rope, for you may need it, unless my foresight deceives me. And now farewell, and return safely." "Aye, and come back and find all my house, and land in a pickle. Blast dragons," said Giles. Then, stuffing a great coil of rope in a bag by his saddle, he climbed up and rode off. He did not take the dog, who had kept well out of sight all the morning. But when he was gone, Garm slunk home and stayed there and howled all the night, and was beaten for it, and went on howling. "Help! Ow! Help!" he cried. "I'll never see dear master again, and he was so terrible and splendid. I wish I had gone with him, I do." "Shut up," said the farmer's wife, "or you'll never live to see if he comes back or he don't." The blacksmith heard the howls. "A bad omen," he said cheerfully. "Oh, bad? Interesting." Many days passed, and no news came. "No news is bad news," he said, and burst into song. So, after that whole mess of mine, so yeah, he's off on his own adventure now with the Knights of the King's court, pretty much. And it's really funny that he mentions the whole rope thing, because like I both run and play D&D, and the whole thing with fantasy, I guess, is that you always bring rope. That's like one of the things that you always get. It's like rope is very important. You never know what you're going to use it for. So it's just kind of funny that it's like a little brief mention of that, but like in Tolkien's own form. So I just think it was kind of funny. All right, so let's get back to the story here. When Farmer Giles got to court, he was tired and dusty, but the knights, in polished mail and with shining helmets on their head, were all standing by their horses. The king's summons and the inclusion of the farmer had annoyed them, and so they insisted on obeying orders literally, setting off the moment that Giles arrived. The poor farmer had barely time to swallow a sop in a draught of wine before he was off on the road again. The mare was offended. What she thought of the king was luckily unexpressed, as it was highly disloyal. It was already late in the day. Too late in the day to start a dragon hunt, thought Giles, but they did not go far. The knights were in no hurry once they had started. They rode along at their leisure in a straggling line, knights, esquires, servants, and ponies trussed with baggage, and Farmer Giles jogging behind on his tired mare. When evening came, they halted and pitched their tents. No provision had been made for Farmer Giles, and he had to borrow what he could. The mare was indignant, and she forswore her allegiance to the house of Augustus Bonifacius. The next day they rode on, and all the day after. On the third day, they descried in the distance the dim and inhospitable mountains. But long before they were in the regions where the lordship of Augustus Bonifacius was not universally acknowledged. They rode then with more care and kept closer together. On the fourth day, they reached the wild hills and the borders of the dubious lands, where legendary creatures were reputed to dwell. Suddenly, one of those riding ahead came upon ominous footprints in the sand by the stream. They called for the farmer. "What are these, Master Aegidius?" they said. "Dragon marks," said he. "Lead on," said they. So now they rode west with Farmer Giles at their head, and all the rings were jingling on his leather coat. That mattered little, for all the knights were laughing and talking, and a minstrel rode with them singing a lay. Every now and again they took up the refrain of the song and sang it all together, very loud and strong. It was encouraging, for the song was good. It had been made long before in days when Battles were more common than tournaments, but it was unwise. Their coming was now known to all the creatures of that land, and the dragons were cocking their ears in all the caves of the west. There was no longer any chance of their catching old Chrysophalax napping. As luck, or the Grey Mare herself, would have it, when at last they drew under the very shadow of the dark mountains, Farmer Giles's mare went lame. They had now begun to ride along steep and stony paths, climbing upwards with toil and ever-growing disquiet. Bit by bit she dropped back in the line, stumbling and limping and looking so patient and sad that at last Farmer Giles was obliged to get off and walk. Soon they found themselves right at the back among the back ponies, but no one took any notice of them. The knights were discussing points of precedence and etiquette, and their attention was distracted. Otherwise they would have observed that dragon marks were now obvious and numerous. They had come, indeed, to the places where Chrysophalax often roamed, or alighted after taking his daily exercise in the air. The lower hills and the slopes on either side of the path had a scorched and trampled look. There was little grass, and the twisted stumps of heather and gorse stood up black amid wide patches of ash and burned earth. The region had been a dragon's playground for many a year. A dark mountain wall loomed up before them. Farmer Giles was concerned about his mare, but he was glad of the excuse for no longer being so conspicuous. It had not pleased him to be riding at the head of such a cavalcade in these dreary and dubious places. A little later he was gladder still, and had reason to thank his fortune and his mare. For just about midday, it being then the feast of Candlemas, interesting, and the 7th day of the riding, Tailbiter leaped out of its sheath, and the dragon came out of his cave. Alright, so, before we get into another action-packed sequence, probably, I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, so, Farmer Giles is now among the knights of the king's court, and none of them like him. So he's pretty much trying to do his best to pretty much just keep along the path with them, but then eventually when they actually do come across tracks, that's when they actually are like, okay, well, we will trust this guy, so push him on ahead. And they do that until his mare starts to pretty much, I wouldn't say like buckle under the pressure, but it's just like, it wasn't meant for that much travel, I feel like. So, yeah. And then obviously now that they go into under the shadow of the dark mountains and whatnot, of course that's where the dragon's going to be, at under shadow by the mountains in a spooky forest. That's when they meet the dragon. Perfect chance. So, here we go. Without warning or formality, he swooped out to give battle. Down he came upon them, with a rush and a roar. Far from his home he had not shown himself overbold in spite of his ancient and imperial lineage. But now he was filled with a great wrath, for he was fighting at his own gate, as it were, and with all his treasure to defend. He came round a shoulder of the mountain like a ton of thunderbolts, with a noise like a gale and a gust of red lightning. The argument concerning precedence stopped short. All the horses shied to one side or the other, and some of the knights fell off. The ponies and the baggage and the servants turned and ran at once. They had no doubt as to the order of precedence. Suddenly there came a rush of smoke that smothered them all, and right in the midst of it the dragon crashed into the head of the line. Several of the knights were killed before they could even issue their formal challenge to battle, and several others were bowled over, horses and all. As for the remainder, their steeds took charge of them, and turned round and fled, carrying their masters off, whether they wished it or not. Most of them wished it indeed. But the old grey mare did not budge. She was afraid of breaking her legs at the steep, stony path. Maybe she felt too tired to run away. She felt in her bones that dragons on the wing are worse behind you than before you, and you need more speed than a racehorse for flight to be useful. Besides, she had seen this Chrysophalax before, and remembered chasing him over field and brook in her own country, till he lay down tame in the village high street. Anyway, she stuck her legs out wide, and she snorted. Farmer Giles went as pale as his face could manage, but he stayed at her side, for there seemed nothing else to do. And so it was that the dragon, charging down the line, suddenly saw straight in front of him his old enemy, with Tailbiter in his hand. It was the last thing he expected. He swerved aside like a great bat and collapsed on the hillside close to the road. Up came the grey mare, quite forgetting to walk lame. Farmer Giles, much encouraged, had scrambled hastily on her back. "Excuse me," said he, "but were you looking for me by any chance?" No, indeed, said Chrysophalax. Who would have thought of seeing you here? I was just flying around. Then we meet by good luck, said Giles, and the pleasure is mine, for I was looking for you. What's more, I have a bone to pick with you. Several bones, in a matter of speaking. The dragon snorted. Farmer Giles put up his arm to ward off the hot gust, and with a flash, Tailbiter swept forward dangerously near the dragon's nose. Hey, said he, and stopped snorting. He began to tremble and back away, and all the fire in him was chilled. You have not, I hope, come to kill me, good master, he whined. Nay, nay, said the farmer, I have not. I said not about killing. The grey mare sniffed. Then what, may I ask, are you doing with all these knights? Said Chrysophalax. Knights always kill dragons if we don't kill them first. I'm doing nothing with them at all. They're not to me, said Giles. And anyway, they are all dead now or gone. What about what you said last Epiphany? What about it? Said the dragon anxiously. You're nigh a month late, said Giles, and payment is overdue. I've come to collect it. You should beg my pardon for all the bother I have been put to. I do indeed, said he. I wish you had not troubled to come. It'll be every bit of your treasure this time, and no market tricks, said Giles, or dead you'll be, and I shall hang your skin from the church steeple as a warning. It's cruel hard, said the dragon. A bargain's a bargain, said Giles. Can't I keep just a ring or two and a mite of gold in consideration of cash payment? Said he. Not a brass button, said Giles, and so they kept on for a while, chaffering and arguing like folk at a fair. Yet at the end of it was as you might expect, for whatever else might be said, Pio had ever outlasted Farmer Giles at a bargaining. The dragon had to walk all the way back to his cave, for Giles stuck to his side with Tailbiter held mighty close. There was a narrow path that wound up and around the mountain, and there was barely room for the two of them. The mare came just behind, and she looked rather thoughtful. It was 5 miles, if it was a step and stiff going, and Giles trudged along, puffing and blowing, but never taking his eye off the worm. At last, on the west side of the mountain, they came to the mouth of the cave. It was large and black and forbidding, and its brazen doors swung on great pillars of iron. Plainly it had been a place of strength and pride in days long forgotten. For dragons do not build such works nor delve such mines, but dwell rather, when they may, in the tombs and treasuries of mighty men and giants of old. The doors of this deep house were set wide, and in their shadow they halt. So far Chrysophalax had no chance to escape, but coming now to his own gate, he sprang forward and prepared to lunge in. Farmer Giles hit him with the flat of the sword. Whoa, said he, before you go in, I've something to say to you. If you ain't outside again in quick time with something worth bringing, I shall come in after you and cut off your tail to begin with. The mare sniffed. She could not imagine Farmer Giles going down alone into a dragon's den for any money on earth. But Chrysophalax was quite prepared to believe it, with Tailbiter looking so bright and sharp and all. And maybe he was right. And the mare, for all her wisdom, had not yet understood the change in her master. Farmer Giles was backing his luck, and after 2 encounters was beginning to fancy that no dragon could stand up to him. And I'll do a quick break here, so because we're almost there. I feel like the story is almost at an end here. So I guess he's having a lot more confidence in him than I even thought too. Oh man, we do have a while actually. So, oh man, yeah. So we're on 62. It's going to be another 10 pages. Maybe this is going to be a part 4 of Farmer Giles. Yeah, you know what? We're going to do that. Sorry, guys. It's just, wow. That takes a long, long time. So, he pretty much makes the dragon Chrysophalax know that he is boss around here, and that even despite the knights, most of the knights being dead or run away, that he will still challenge Chrysophalax with Tailbiter because that's what gives him confidence, I suppose. It's interesting, and even the Grey Mare is very surprised about, like, okay, well, the farmer used to be, like, almost the complete opposite, you know, he's this pretty much like a fat farmer that doesn't do anything. And then now he's like fending off a dragon and chasing a dragon to his treasure hoard if the dragon doesn't bring back what is, you know, owed pretty much. it's really surprising about the whole character arc of Giles here. So, especially now with the whole change in his own character, it's very interesting. And also, he realizes that all of the king's knights really aren't that not trustworthy. Yeah, they're not trustworthy either, but they're also scared and terrified, and they will take their time out of anything. They're so pampered and everything, and then the dragon comes up and, well, yeah, they get totally demolished. So you can see how important those knights are now. So yeah, we are going to finish with part 4 next time, because this is actually a lot longer than I thought it would be. And I would just put I was going to put some final notes, just say some final notes about it at the end of it too. So yeah, so it'll be a part 4, definitely. I don't know, I might split it up into part 1 and 2, do a little bit of Silmarillion, and then do another part 3 and 4. But we'll see how all that goes. We'll see, I suppose. So make sure that you guys subscribe to my channels. I have Castbox, Spotify, and YouTube so far. And most of it's been on YouTube, so I'm really glad that you guys are listening to the stories and whatnot. But then again, you know, it's my own personal project, and so far I'm having a lot of fun with it. So maybe somebody else will come along and listen to the whole thing and enjoy it and my rambling and whatnot. So I don't know. We'll see about that. But with all that being said, just stay tuned for the next episode. And may the light of Elbereth be with you all. Farewell!